I want to talk about this term redistribution for a second, because we're kind of missing the point here, right? When we're talking about redistribution. Okay. So when we use this term, what we're allowing or what we're assuming is that these people are going to have this money, right? The wealthy, they're going to have billions of dollars, millions of dollars even, doesn't matter. The point is that there are people in an upper strata of society that own most of the wealth. Okay. So how are we going to redistribute this wealth to make society more equitable and more just and more good and all this? We're missing the point here. What we should be asking is, why do these people have this wealth in the first place, right? We shouldn't be talking about redistribution. We should be talking about distribution. How does that wealth that is created by labor get distributed in the first place? The reason it is distributed to these insanely rich billionaires is because of ownership of means of production. This is like a central Marxist tenet, right? Power in society and inequality tends to come from unequal ownership of means of production. This means things that go into producing the necessities of life, right? For hospital workers, it's the hospital itself, it's the medical record, it's the laboratories, all the medical devices and the pharmaceuticals, all this shit. Well, who owns that stuff? It's capitalists. You and me don't own it. The hospital workers don't own it. The healthcare workers don't own it. So how do they get rich off this shit? They own it. All we do is work and labor and create the value that they extract from us, right? So this is a central tenet here of the capitalist mode of production. It is that inequality stems from this way of producing itself. It is not that like we need to make capitalism nicer, we need to make capitalism better. It is this mode of production itself that creates inequality and has to be superseded by something different, something better. That's why we're here today, right? If you believe anything that these people tell you, whether it be Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, your hospital CEO, anybody above you that is telling you this is just the way it is or this is how it has to be, you know what you're doing? You are internalizing the logic of your oppressor, okay? You are lapping up the indoctrination. You are providing an open screen to the propaganda, okay? And I mean, I say this word and people say, okay, this guy is a conspiracy theorist and all this kind of shit. Folks, propaganda doesn't have to be like, you know, you don't have to think of like Cold War, 1950s, 1960s. Like propaganda is all around us, right? And what these people tell you every single day, that this is just the way it is, this is how society functions, this is the most efficient or productive way of doing things, it's propaganda. And you are internalizing the logic of your oppressor, and you need to understand that because these people do not have your same interests, okay? Their interest is for you to become more impoverished because that means they become more enriched. That is the way this system works.
We need to understand that philanthropy, it's often the cover for just ruling class dominance. We don't need their generosity, like we don't need their charity, and we don't need to recognize in this contemporary example of Bill Gates how he's different because he has this veneer of intelligence compared to this orangish fuckhead, you know, who can't even sit at a desk right. The reality is capitalists are going to capitalists. That's how the game goes. And they're going to look to buy like public favor through these philanthropic donations. They understand that this is just one way in which the game can be rigged. But inequality is going to continue to grow. There's going to continue to be a downward trajectory of the working class. And that means you physicians, especially if you're not aligned with your nurses and your other care staff, that's fucking you. And a lot of you that are younger understand that. But boy, your attendings, they're struggling, aren't they? Oh, we also see how some people within specific professions are kind of struggling too. I'm calling out you surgeons. That's also on you. Start fucking thinking about yourself in a class conscious manner, okay? Because one way or another, you are going to suffer in the long run.
Folks, we're all workers, okay? I mean, unless you're like a co-owner of a private practice or something. But I'm talking specifically like residents, fellows, and hospital employees. We're all workers, okay? We're all like the doctors, the nurses, all of us, we're on the same team. God damn it. Residents, stop talking shit about nurses. Stop talking shit about pharmacists. Stop talking shit about technologists. Stop talking shit about people who have your same interest. Cut it out. Okay? It's fine to be annoyed with them when they do something annoying. Fine. But these people are on your team. Recognize that. We're all workers.
We need to strongly understand how democracy is not just a political ideal or a system at large that we think we live in. Democracy should be something that um, it is the cornerstone of everything that we do in regards to our interactions in society. And that means democracy should be democratic in the workplace. Okay. Um, and what we're describing here with philanthropy is really an erosion of our limited democracy, which is oftentimes democratic in name only. Um, and that this will continue, right? Until what seems that is essentially our social safety net is just these gold inlaid wings of philanthropy that are here to be very selective in what they choose to give their money towards. Okay. You can think about how philanthropy specifically look in healthcare itself and how philanthropists kind of navigate the waters of healthcare. You can think about how people donate to hospitals and how they do so because this is exactly what we're getting at. It is a way for them to launder their image publicly. And we also need to think about how they get to choose where their money goes towards. Okay. There's a reason why there are large philanthropic drives for specific diseases and illnesses. It's great that everyone has this complete focus on eradicating cancer and ALS and Alzheimer's. But that should be in a fully funded public system. Research should be donated towards all these things, okay? We all have a vested interest in seeing these things completely ameliorated and all of our needs being met. But philanthropists themselves oftentimes choose large sums of money towards what amount to be pet projects. Oh, I had a child that had mental illness, so all of a sudden I became great on, you know, devoting myself towards the cause of removing the stigma and the barrier around mental illness and the barriers towards mental health, healthcare. Well, that's great, but these things should already be in place. We shouldn't be relying on philanthropists, you know, and their image to do this for us. And oftentimes that themselves is, we fail to see that as something that's more personal rather than also how it gets to this idea that it's undemocratic, that someone that is rich is using their name to draw attention to something.
I want everybody to think about society through three lenses, right? The social lens, the political lens, and the economic lens. There are three primary windows that you should look through. Do we, and when we're talking about democracy, right? Do we have political democracy? And in some sense, we do, right? We go out and vote every 4 years, most people, or like maybe you don't vote at all, but at least you have the option. You can vote for some candidate that you like, and maybe you're voting against somebody you absolutely hate, which is what many of us did, I think, in the last month. You have the ability to join government and movements and actually change things in the political sphere in some capacity, right? So in some ways, there is widespread political democracy. But do we have economic democracy? No, we absolutely do not. And that is really the core of the capitalist economic mode of production. You have people above you who are making these decisions. You have philanthropists who have amassed this great wealth on the backs of your labor, by the way, and they are the ones that get to decide where this money goes. Is that democratic? No, it's not. So even though you get to vote every 4 years or maybe every 2 years, if you bother to get out and, you know, go vote in the midterms, some people who can be bothered to do that, sure, you have, you know, democracy, quote unquote, for some things, but do you have democracy at your workplace? Do you make decisions based on your day to day? No. Do people tell you what to wear? They tell you how much you're going to make. They tell you how long you're going to work. They tell you what you can talk about at work. You don't really have any say over any of these things, right? And the question becomes, do you feel like you can't do this yourself? Do you as a worker, you think you can't make these decisions yourself? You think you need somebody above you, some administrator or manager of the like administrative executive apparatus? You need somebody to tell you how to run your service. You need somebody to tell you the best way to manage ward patients or the ICU. These people have no fucking idea, right? So what democracy means is not just, hey, I can go vote for my next oppressor. Sweet. That's not democracy. Democracy is controlling the having self-determination. That's really what it is actually about. It is having the ability to be autonomous, not just in who you want to rule you, but to be autonomous at the place you spend most of your time, which is at work, unfortunately, but it's the truth. And that's really what this comes down to. Because I mean, we definitely don't have social democracy. That's for sure. I mean, we have like social entitlements, which is fine, more than other nations, I would say. But chief among these democratic ideals is economic democracy. Because let me ask you a question: are you free if you can't afford health insurance? Are you free if you can't afford food every night? Are you free if you can't afford the rent? Are you free if you can't afford childcare? I mean, we joke about it and say you're free to choose between like 20 different kinds of chewing gum. Like, I mean, I guess that's freedom for some people, but are you free to live the life that you actually want to live? I mean, under capitalism, it's work or starve, right? That's not much of a choice. Okay. And if you actually want to have the ability to make your own decisions, you have to think about these people who don't allow you to do that. And a lot of the time, it's these philanthropists. And I actually wanted to go through a couple of these people beyond just Bill Gates. I have a little segment I'd like to go through. Some of these like fantastic beasts and where to find them. Sorry, I couldn't resist making another Harry
Potter reference 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I couldn't help it. Some of these fantastic beasts. We already talked about Bill Gates, who's maybe the ringleader of all these just odious figures. Jeffrey Epstein, the famous billionaire sex trafficker and pedophile extraordinaire, who definitely did not kill himself, right? Gave plenty to institutions and organizations that were for the betterment of society, blah, blah, blah. Got rich over questionable means, and a questionable at best person who is now with the Lord, except not really. Let's see. The Sackler family, one of my favorites, widely reviled as a key instigator of the opioid crisis through their company, Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin. Awesome. What have the Sackler family been up to? Well, they recently pled guilty to the charge of deceiving doctors through marketing a product that was quote unquote not habit forming, which led to the wrongful overdose deaths of about 300,000 people from between 1999 and 2015, with the highest per capita death rates hitting rural counties in Appalachia. And, maybe this is a discussion for another day, but there is a dialectical relationship to trade-related jobs. These sectors of our country that are post-industrial, that have been ravaged by capitalist intrusion and resource extraction. Why do you think the worst of this opioid crisis is in states like West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania? These are geographic locations that, for better, or for, I shouldn't even say for better, for worse, don't have work. They don't have work that can pay bills, I should say. There's plenty of work. If you want to work for $9 an hour, it's plenty of work. If you want to work and not be able to meet your basic needs, plenty of work. But there is assuredly a relationship between the worst geographic locations of the opioid crisis and the loss of manufacturing jobs over the last 40, 50 years. What else about the Sacklers? Let's see. All these people that have been caught up in this grift, and it's worse than a grift, really. These 300,000 people that have died or more. It's not to mention the people that are still battling addiction to this day, right? And what do the Sacklers do? What is their great contribution to society? They've been donating to the art world. I mean, these are just the lords of art washing, right? This is the family that they just buy advertising space in a gallery to cover up their negative public image. That is how they relate to you that they are a benevolent entity. Hey, like we're doing a good thing for cultural production. We're doing donations in art that makes people feel good and feel better. Well, these people have led to the deaths of over 300,000 people over the last 15 years. So you tell me how benevolent these people are.
Well,
Next
and why
on the
would
list,
we need?
Go ahead.
And why would we need to rely on these criminals to fund our arts? Were we to have a much more robust like state-funded art system or like actual funding for the arts?
Yeah, like what do you need these rich people to decide that they want to give this money? Why do we need them when we could actually, I don't know, like create an equitable society where we as people decide where our tax money goes to, which could fund cultural production and art? I mean, that makes a lot more sense. Sounds a little more democratic. We don't have that, right? Yeah, so next on our list here, David and Charles Koch of libertarian fame, energy and chemical industry magnates, and famous climate change denialists and PragerU donors. I mean, these are just, I mean, for those who don't know, PragerU is like D- propaganda, I would say, on YouTube. But unfortunately, they have a lot of market share in the propaganda realm, quote unquote. And unfortunately, people who get down YouTube rabbit holes find themselves watching PragerU videos that tells them the free market is the greatest thing in the world, and socialism caused the death of 100 billion people, and you know all the same shit you've heard over and over again. Oh, by the way, climate change is not real. These are the people who have given millions of dollars to your charitable organization of your choice, of your fave. Are they good people? I'll let you decide. Who else? Harvey Weinstein, filmmaker, professional rapist, and prominent scumbag who coerced and exploited countless women in and outside of the film industry. What did he do? He donated to progressive female politicians. Awesome, brother. Created USC Film School scholarships for female filmmakers. Feminist extraordinaire. You know, guilt is a kind of a weird thing, isn't it? I just want to say, very glad to see this absolute piece of shit rotting in prison. You fucking maggot. Next on the list here, we got a little bit of time, I think, right? Roger Ailes, former Fox News CEO, Olympic gold level sexual abuser and rapist, perennial worst guy alive until his widely approved death in 2017. Okay. Let's see. What did he do? He had a nonprofit organization. Oh, I can't believe it. ACI Senior Development is what they called it. They were planning to donate $500,000 toward an elder care facility in Putnam County, New York. Oh, by the way, where he lived. Yeah, rest in pieces, you fucking... Anyways, next on the list here. Ken Lay, the notorious founder, CEO, and chairman of Enron. This is one of my favorite con mans of all time here. One of the biggest contributions of the Lay Family Foundation. Oh, here comes another foundation. One of the biggest contributions of the Lay Family Foundation and the Enron Corporate Foundation was made to the MD Anderson Cancer Center at the University of Texas. Oh boy, we love to fight cancer, folks. But oh no, what did Ken Lay do? He was found guilty of securities fraud. I mean, I don't know economics. It's not real. It's made up. It's, you know, astrology for white men. That's what economics is. But really, what securities fraud means is it's basically elder white bastard speak for I'm lying to y'all motherfuckers. But anyways, please go ahead and invest because this is a real business venture. Keep investing. This is not a scam. Got a couple more here. Stephen Cohen, who has been in the news recently, prominent hedge fund manager. Read here, piece of shit. And new owner of the New York Mets, who happens to be my favorite baseball team. Little bit conflict of interest here, but stay with me. In 2014, the Cohen Foundation provided funding via the New York University Langone Center for the study of post-traumatic stress and TBI. What a guy, right? He created $275 million to the Cohen Veterans Network. Ooh, we love our veterans. And $75 million to the New York Presbyterian Hospital. That was 4 years ago. What did he do? Well, his hedge fund group, SAC Capital, which is just his initials. Oh my God, like what a worm. Naming his own company after himself. Jesus Christ. Well, they used to dominate Wall Street before they pled guilty to insider trading in 2013 and paid almost $2 billion in penalties. But, you know, as a good con man does, he got away unscathed. Good for him. Now he owns a baseball team. American dream, folks. And the last one I have here is Brian Roberts, who is the chairman of Comcast. Enough said. I really don't feel like I have to say much more than that. $25 million donation to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for pediatric genetics research and development. These people who are the leaders of industry, the leaders of our technocratic business society, are awful people. It's really as simple as that. The problem is that all nonprofits, including hospitals, museums, universities, they fully rely on a donor class to keep afloat, right? And this is very much mirrored in the political sector, right? Where politicians rely on donations from wealthy corporate entities for re-election, right? With some exceptions like Bernie Sanders, AOC, most of these people rely on wealthy donors. So even if a nonprofit has its heart in the right place, what they're really thinking about in the long term, how do we maximize revenue? That always outcompetes the initial goal, no matter how noble it is, right? So all of these people who maybe used to be your heroes, or maybe you think they're at least just fine people, they're not. They always have an ulterior motive. There's always something that they're looking toward, right? That is what these capitalists do. That's what they will always do as long as the system continues to persist. Okay? That's my spiel. That's just my little, my little trip down awful person lane. So I hope you all enjoyed that.
Yeah, and so for our good liberal friends who aren't fellow travelers yet, like, you know, maybe they like Bill Gates, maybe they like Warren Buffett, they listen to the same NPR shows but hate the Kochs, right? Like, that is not a consistent position. If you hate the Kochs and like you don't think they should have that much power and influence over our society, over our politics, then you cannot let this unrestrained system that gives that much power to the Kochs give as much power to Bill Gates. Like, these guys are not good either. The point is that no individual, single person, or a small group of people should have that much say over our society.
Like, just remember that philanthropy, as we're describing here, all it is a deliberate use of wealth to divert attention away from different forms of economic exploitation and horrible individual actions that occur in numerous ways. We're talking about people being fucking rapists and serial sexual predators, but these are also people that in their business day-to-day dealings are fucking disgusting, okay? Philanthropy has often been used. In fact, one of the reasons it came about in the early 1900s, or late 1800s technically, was it had a strong anti-union message. It tried to undermine the collective well-being of workers. So it was looking to expand like this union-free efficiency for this entrepreneurial class, which were the robber barons of this time. And they wanted to do so by using these powerful levers of social impact. By giving and to public health causes, they were also looking to create a robust labor force whose healthcare needs could be met and addressed during this time period, which still very much has a kind of dark connotation to vaccine campaigns in the global South. When you look at what goes on in Latin America and in Africa, a lot of the public healthcare work that is being done by philanthropies, it comes across as, yes, we're trying to just meet a need of enormous healthcare disparity where people are living in just absolute dire conditions based on chronic illnesses that are untreated and all these things really that are very much too created by global capitalism. But it's not as simple as saying that that's being done at face value just because, oh, they're poor African kids that need to be vaccinated. When you look at the research and when you understand a lot of the seedy shit that's going on here, you recognize that there are companies that are not only profiting off of like the vaccine campaigns, but they're also looking to create a productive workforce in these places. And it's very much similar to what's done here. It's not necessarily different. You have to understand nuances and complexities, and there's a lot of research and shit you can get into. But from just being a regular person, it actually is pretty easy to understand how this is being done at a face level. Okay. If you're in the hospital and you're thinking, all right, but what does this have to do with me? This pod's been great. I've learned a lot. And yeah, I'm starting to question philanthropists. You're right. It's kind of brought to attention that they do some real nasty ass shit. Well, I want you to think about a couple things. In particular, are you working for a place that you know is receiving funding from one of these organizations or individuals? Do you work for a specific institute, a center, a department? And in doing so, when you find out, are there certain ways your management is talking to you? I personally dub it the language of innovation, of philanthropic innovation, right? Where we bring up things like innovative procedures, innovative techniques. We have innovative physicians and innovative staff, teams, departments. We're doing innovative research. There's a doubling down on technology. You might even hear something like, well, we've created an in-house innovation arm, or we have an in-house team that meets a particular need. Not only is this a demand of the hospital simply to provide services, and oftentimes people, you were doing these services anyway, and you were doing them in the midst of stark budgetary cuts at a public level, but receiving philanthropic donations or grants, etc., which are created by these outside austerity measures. But these demands are coming at you with a price, and that is this price of a productive capacity. You have to meet these productive metrics. And you can do it in a qualitative way. You just have to be a productive nurse. You have to be able to take care of so many patients. Your ratios have to go higher. You have to be able to sacrifice more on your own behalf. Well, a 10% pay deduction, well, you just have to make that necessary cut, okay? And you do so because you love people. And guess what? We received this money for, especially like if you're working at a place like MD Anderson or whatever, right? Well, we just received so much funding from this particular grant, or the Gates Foundation just donated this much to cancer research. Be very careful, okay? There's a lot more to that, but it is the language of neoliberalism, it is the language of privatization, and it is the language that plutocrats employ that sustains aristocracy, and it keeps the system as it is. It undermines the public nature of our work, the public nature of healthcare, and what we should be fighting for. It's all attached. So be very, very leery of being associated with an institution that, does good work with philanthropists. You can understand your day-to-day work as being something that should be applauded and recognized, but there's a larger picture, and I'm strongly asking you to step outside and understand these arguments. It's not just about you. It's not just about the field that you work in. It's about society itself and what this means. And if we're really committed to things like a Medicare for all universal healthcare system, then we have to be thinking even more outside the boundary of strictly healthcare. We have to be thinking about things like economics and democracy in much broader terms. And it's okay that we're tired and that we don't necessarily want to. If you're listening to this podcast, that obviously means you're interested in doing some degree of that personal introspection and reflection on how society has functioned. But we figure out this shit together. And we're also telling you there's some dark, seedy shit that goes on in healthcare that is connected to numerous things, philanthropy being one of them, and be wary about it and start being able to advocate and organize accordingly.
What do you think about creating like a dictionary and thesaurus of neoliberalism, where we have words like innovation, inefficiency, productivity? You like another phrase I think of is like access. This word access, it just means like affordability. Oh, perfect. See, that's like 5 words already.
Choice.
Oh, we should do ABCs of. Oh man, we should do ABCs of neoliberalism. Yes.
Honestly, okay, I'm writing this down. We're not going to forget this. ABCs of neoliberalism. Awesome. Okay, folks, we are ending the podcast, and we have a new project called the ABCs of Neoliberalism. Thank you for listening. We're just cutting this short because we're gonna we're going to sell millions of these. Very excited. Awesome. Well, we're almost at like 2 hours here, but I just want to briefly, because many of you are likely wondering, well, Eminem, you uppity, sanctimonious crowd. Well, if you don't like philanthrocapitalism, what do you suggest we replace it with? Right. So what do we do about it? Well, this is a question, me personally, I've been thinking about for a long time. Meaning, what would a socialist bloc need to do in order to supersede philanthrocapitalism? If it can't be abolished, by like some kind of government reform or whatever, how do we create the conditions for its obsolescence while continuing to meet the needs of the people that do benefit from charity today, albeit in a marketized and piecemeal kind of fashion? Because the reality is, yes, we do have to admit these things do help some people, right? It's not like the money just goes in there and it goes into a black void. It does help people. But what we're trying to say is that the conditions that create philanthropy are not necessary, and we can meet the needs of all of society if we organize solidarity in a different way, right? So the way I think about this, if you're not, or if you are kind of neatly situated within leftist circles already, like not liberal, but leftist circles, you'll know that the left as an entity, especially libertarian socialists and anarchists, they're constantly talking about something called dual power, right? You may have heard this term, but pretty much what it means is the creation of counter hegemons, right? A hegemon being some kind of supreme entity, some dominant entity, right? So dual power is this way of creating counter institutions, right? Counter institutions of direct participatory democracy that rival these dominant institutions of our time, right? Creating counter power. And if it's effective, right, the way that this works is it directly weakens those dominant institutions, renders them superfluous or unnecessary, right? For those who are a little more in the weeds, I'm not talking about Leninist dual power. That's something kind of separate that has historical context in the Russian Revolution. I'm not talking about that really. It's related, but not quite the same. This being a way of building powerful counter institutions. So what do I mean by that? The question in all of this discussion, right? And you can read people like Noam Chomsky. That's where I learned a lot of this kind of way of thinking, is power. Every single thing within politics, society, the economy, look at it through a lens of power, right? How would an organized left, right? Because we're not organized right now. How would an organized left build power that's robust enough to rival those commanding organizations that do dominate our society? Well, if we understand the dominant form of power in the 21st century, at least, to be control over resources, among other things, but primarily control over resources is what gets you power in this world. And if those resources are obtained with means of payment, then that means those means of payment, i.e. money, is what I'm talking about. That's the thing to target, right? So what this would mean for the left, I mean, really what it all comes back to, every time I think about this, every time I go through this in my head, it always comes back to mass pooling of wealth, okay? What the Bernie Sanders campaign taught us, what all of these left-wing political movements, AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, all of these political movements, for whatever they're doing in Congress, for better or for worse, what they've taught us is that we can pool wealth among the working class, and we can pool immense wealth among the working class if it's towards something that people actually believe in, right? It's not a problem to fund these things if it actually goes towards things that benefit people, right? And this would be a massive project, okay? We're not even close to something like this, but I want you to kind of get to thinking toward tangible solutions to overcome the current state of things, right? the abolition of the current state of things, right? This would be millions, 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 millions of people that would be collectively sharing bits of their own wealth to create these networks of institutions that are needed to truly counter that chokehold, right? The transnational corporations, the financial institutions, the corrupt government entities. There's no way of fighting these things on our own, right? That's what neoliberalism creates, is that atomized, individualized society. What we need to understand is that the way toward our collective liberation is collective action. It's not, you're not going to solve climate change by recycling, okay? You yourself, even though you should do that, you're not going to solve it by recycling. You're going to solve it by joining those who have the same ideas that you do and countering power against people who don't share your interests, right? So, for example, if we were to counter philanthrocapitalism, right? If we were to create a counter institution that would rival what we have today, which is charitable donations from philanthropists, in my conception at least, that would mean communities meeting the needs of people that are currently met by charitable donations. The most democratic way of doing that would be what I call a cooperatively owned mutual aid fund. And I'm not going to get into like the big details about this, but the idea is more or less not just putting money into a GoFundMe that you like, right? Something that means something to you or caught your interest or something you saw on Facebook. It means recurring, call it monthly or whatever it is, not donations, but pooling of wealth, right? And it's not just in some institution that you have no control over. What I mean by cooperatively owned is that if you put this money into this fund, it means you get to decide partly where this money goes, right? The way I would think of something like this would be the creation of a directly democratic institution where we vote on where this money actually goes, right? And if you have the capacity, if you have the resources of millions of people, think about what we could do for people who are struggling on the limits of precarity every single day. We could fund cash bail, to get people out of prison who don't need to be there. We could fund people who have emergency expenses. They have car payments. They have medical debt. We could fund all kinds of things. We could even fund just regular mutual aid projects that you see today. But the catch is, if you're not only paying into this entity, you also partly own it, right? So you actually have some decision making over what happens with this entity. So it's not that you just fund something and you forget about it, right? This is an ongoing process. This is how you build community. This is how you get people to join a movement, because that's what this would be. It's not just giving to meet the needs, which is the point. But in addition to that, it is bringing people into the movement. When they see, hey, these socialists are helping us out, right? That is how you build a movement. It is in some sense, I don't want to call it a double movement because that's not really what it is, but in some sense, it is both an anarchist, mutual aid, societal fund, and it is building a political movement that many of us Marxist Leninists think need to happen on a more political level. To me, this is an actual synthesis of two groups who seemingly can't decide, who seemingly can't agree on anything. This is a way to actually do it. Okay. So you're meeting the needs of the people while building counter institutions to rival the dominant organizations that run our daily lives. I want to leave it at that because there's so much more that I could get into with it. If anybody is interested, get a hold of us. But this is how you build counter institutions. It's not just voting in an election. It's not just giving money once a month and forgetting about it. It is being involved in a community building organization that you actually have part ownership in, which means you should care about it, right? It's something that directly involves you on an ongoing basis. So we can think about ways we can build these institutions throughout just or beyond just, I should say, like some kind of wealth creation. Medical cooperatives to replace, on a big enough scale, to replace private hospitals, right? Already things like food not bombs exist, but think of it in a way that actually perpetuates that giving and is not just a one-time thing, right? Think of it as a way that you are controlling in some democratic way the future of people who you want to bring into a movement. And this can be applied through all sectors of society. So if we want to think about ways that we don't have to confront the ways that capitalism is able to control our lives, these are the kinds of institutions that we have to think about. Not just donations here and there. It's about owning these institutions and democratically deciding what we do with the resources that we pool collectively, because that is what it takes. It takes collective organization on the ground and through these other means. So something I've been thinking about a while. It's all I really had to say. I kind of talked more than I wanted to, but yeah, that's something that can actually supersede the current state of things, which needs to happen. And now we're like almost at 2 hours. So what do y'all think? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, let me taking off of your points, let me add one last little bit for myself. If you're even skeptical about anything that you just heard in regards to not just philanthropists, but you're like, okay, I like what you're saying, but it feels a little abstract and I don't see any possibility to it. And I'm thinking more in these current foundational manners for how things are organized and structured now. Well, let me plug a little book for you. There's a book by Stephanie Kelton, who used to be the Democrats on the Senate Budget Committee, their chief economist of 2016, appointed by Bernie Sanders. She has an amazing book out that came out earlier this year called The Deficit Myth. Everyone should read it. It really talks about how we can finance the type of programs and policies that we're looking at. And it can do so in a socialist manner. It really will shine a light for many of you on the myths that we understand in regards to oftentimes thinking about the government's budget as a family household budget. It utterly destroys that argument. It will completely create a new paradigm for you to think about the financial creation of wealth for society, not wealth for these philanthropists and these individuals, but how you can really think about how we can use our collective wealth and how wealth itself is created, right? Money's fictional. Well, yes, it is. And because it is, guess what? We can fucking fund a completely single payer healthcare system and so much more. So please check out this book. It is pretty revelatory and eye-opening. And at the same time, if you want other historical examples for how we can restructure healthcare, I would strongly look at indigenous communities. You can listen to people like Red Nation Podcast, etc. You can look at historically how we've talked about or at least understood the issues within our Black communities, the African American communities of the South during the Jim Crow era, and how historically they were able to create medical or meet medical needs for their communities. So please look into
read about the Black Panthers.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Please look into these things.
They were able to feed countless children. They were able to do political education. They were able to provide housing, temporary housing, at least to some people. I mean, there are possibilities of both providing mutual aid and building movements, and the two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they have to be synthesized. So I actually do want to read that book by Stephanie Kelton. It's on my list. I'm very interested in that. Although I did just read a book, one of the best books I've ever read, which is called The Long 20th Century. I highly recommend anybody check that out. It's kind of a slog at some parts, but I'm feeling smart again, folks, which is what we want. So check that out, but probably check out the book that Che Guevara told you first. Let's see. Sigmund Freud. I didn't get to introduce your name until just now.
Okay.
Any last thoughts?
No, I think we learned a lot about how philanthropy is a front for wealth criminals and sex criminals of all stripes, and how inefficient it is, and how undemocratic it is. And I think it's nice to end on a vision for a positive future. And who doesn't love a good reading list?
We love reading lists. My book list is probably at 50 to 60 books by now, which, you know, never get to all of them. But
Mhm.
there's revolutionary optimism that applies to also getting through your reading list, getting through your theory, folks. So never give up. Trust your instincts. Well, what do you think?
I think that does it.
What are we going to do next time?
Ooh, I don't know. Have we decided?
Are we looking at Hahnemann? I thought.
I kind of think
We
that
should.
case study for Hahnemann is a good idea. Nice little segue from episode 1.
That's it. All right.
Let's do it. Or it'll be something else. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it, so, as you can tell, but we'll come at you in probably another month or so with a new episode of M&M. And it's great to be with you today. It is Saturday, November 28th. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm hearing a lot of the discourse talking shit about turkeys, and how the only good turkey is a deep fried turkey. May be true. I can't comment myself. I did have a roast on Thursday rather than a turkey, which was delicious. Shout out my beautiful partner who did that, and I had nothing to do with that. You know, it's whatever you want. Thanksgiving is a colonial holiday anyways. It's about on the same level as what do you call it? I almost said St. Patrick's Day, Columbus Day. Is St. Patrick a colonist? Is he an imperialist? Who is that? Who is St. Patrick even?
No, he's a saint in Ireland. Drove out all the
fuck.
snakes or something.
Northern Ireland?
I don't know.
St. Patrick was in the IRA. For folks who didn't know.
Yeah, that'd be that'd be very cool. But I mean, Halloween's over, so it's done for me. Nothing
Done.
until next October.
Yep. All right. Well, we're almost through our imperialist holidays. We're coming to the end of 2020. Some would say that's good. Some would say 2021 is only going to be worse, which is probably the truth, because probably since 9/11, every single year has only gotten shittier. So just expect more of the same. Anyways, on a lighter note, there is no lighter note, actually. Just have a great weekend. Be blessed. Go in peace. And thank you to my wonderful co-hosts for a great episode, for a great discussion. And we will see you all next time.
Teeny tiny little things keep pouring out of my machine. I just typed a word and I just pressed return. Someone made this easy, made this inevitable.